As I lay dying in a hospital room, my family was hunting elephants in Africa, ignoring 47 missed calls. But what I did with our $8 million family trust turned their safari into the most expensive one in history. I'm 73 years old, and I want to tell you a story about how one family safari changed the destinies of several generations of my family. It's a story of betrayal, greed, and how sometimes the most painful lessons become the most valuable. I live in Charleston, South Carolina, in a house my great-grandfather built in 1887, a Victorian mansion with white columns surrounded by ancient oaks draped in Spanish moss, a home that raised 4 generations of Harrisons, a home that has seen joys and sorrows, weddings and funerals, triumphs and tragedies. Our family owned a textile factory that, for 120 years, was one of the state's largest employers. My husband, Charles, passed away 12 years ago, leaving me to manage the $8 million family trust. That money was meant to secure the future of our children, and great. Charles and I had 3 children: Richard, 48, a lawyer in Atlanta; Sarah, 45, an interior designer in Miami; and Michael, 41, who himself an entrepreneur, though none of his ventures ever turned a profit. Each had their own families, with a total of 11, and great. For years, I was the heart of our family. I hosted every holiday, bailaid them out during tough times, paid for educations, covered medical bills, and provided down payments for homes. I was the bank, the counselor, the peacemaker, and the matriarch. But in recent years, I noticed troubling changes. Calls from my children grew rare, and when they did call, the conversation inevitably turned to money. Mom, Emma's going to, can you help with tuition? Mom, we're struggling with the mortgage, could you? Mom, Joshua wants to start a business. I never said no. In the 12 years since Charles's death, I spent about $2 million on the family. Not invested, spent. On education, homes, cars, vacations, failed businesses, medical bills, weddings, divorces. And every time I wrote a check, they promised, Mom, we're so grateful, we'll never forget your kindness, we'll always be there for you. But there meant only when they needed money. 3 months ago, my life changed dramatically. It started on an ordinary Tuesday in October. I woke up with a strange heaviness in my chest. At first, I thought it was heartburn. I'd eaten spicy food at a Mexican restaurant with my friend the night before. By noon, the pain worsened. It spread to my left arm and I felt nauseous. At 73, I knew enough about life to know this wasn't heartburn. I called Richard, my eldest, no answer. Tried Sarah, her phone was off. Michael didn't pick up either. I had to call 911 myself. In the hospital, the doctors confirmed my fears: an acute heart attack. Mrs. Harrison, said Dr. Johnson, the cardiologist, you're lucky you got help quickly, but it's serious. We need to perform emergency angioplasty. Lying on a gurney outside the operating room, I tried calling my children again. Richard, no answer. Sarah, no answer. Michael, no answer. The surgery went well, but the next 2 days were critical. I lay in the ICU, hooked up to wires and tubes, trying to reach my family every half hour. 47 calls, 47 missed calls in 2 days. On the 3rd day, when I was moved to a regular room, I finally learned where they were. Brought me a tablet and showed me Sarah's Instagram, photos of a luxurious safari lodge in Tanzania, Sarah in designer khaki posing against a Serengeti sunset, Richard with an expensive rifle next to a dead lion, Michael with his wife and kids at a watering hole watching elephants. Family time. They called it family time while I was dying in the hospital. I scrolled further and saw more photos: luxury tents with air conditioning and marble bathrooms, private planes, candlelit dinners in the savannah, hunting the big 5 lion, leopard, rhino, elephant, and buffalo. In the caption of one photo, Sarah wrote, "The most incredible family vacation. Thank you, Mom, for making this dream come true." Thank you, Mom. Yes, I paid for that trip. 2 months earlier, my children came to me with a special request. Richard explained they wanted a dream family trip before they grew up and scattered. Mom, he said, we found an incredible tour in Africa. Private safari, the best guides, luxury accommodations. It'll be unforgettable for the kids. They'll see wildlife, learn about other cultures. How much is it? I asked. $39,000, Sarah replied. We know it's a lot, but it's an investment in family memories. Moments like this don't come twice. I hesitated. $39,000 was a significant sum, even for our family's finances. but they so rarely asked for something for the whole family together. Okay, I said finally, but on one condition. I want you to promise to be reachable by phone. My heart's been acting up, and at my age, anything could happen. Of course, Mom, they said in unison. We'll be in touch every day. Lies, it was all lies. Now, staring at their happy faces on Instagram, I saw the truth. They didn't care about family memories. They didn't care about the kids' education. They wanted flashy photos for social media and the thrill of killing wild animals. On my 4th day in the hospital, Sarah finally called. Mom, she exclaimed, her voice brimming with excitement. How are you? We just got back from the most incredible trip. The kids are thrilled, thank you so much. Sarah, I said quietly, I'm in the hospital. I had a heart attack. Silence, a long silence. What, when? 4 days ago, I called you 47 times. Mom, we were in the savannah. The signal was bad. We didn't know. You had satellite internet, good enough to post on Instagram every day. Another silence. Mom, I'm so sorry. We'll come home right away. No need, I said. The worst is over. After Sarah, Richard and Michael called, both with apologies, both with excuses. Bad signal, didn't see the messages, phones died. More lies. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in my hospital bed thinking about my life, about how I'd spent the last 12 years caring for my family, about how they'd used my love and generosity, about how easily they forgot me when they were having fun. And then I made a decision that changed everything. The next morning, I asked a nurse to bring my phone and called my lawyer, George Wilkins. George, I need to change my will and the terms of the family trust. You just had a heart attack, maybe wait until you're fully recovered. No, George, I've never been clearer-headed than I am now. George came to the hospital that afternoon. We worked for 3 hours, revising every document. The old trust stipulated that after my death, the $8 million would be split equally among my 3 children. There were also separate funds for this education and other family benefits. The new documents were radically different. First, I cut all 3 children out of the will entirely. Second, I bequeathed the bulk of the trust's $75 million to the World Wildlife Fund, with specific instructions to use the money to protect African elephants, lions, rhinos, and other animals my family had hunted. The remaining $500,000 was divided among various charities, animal shelters, senior care centers, and educational programs for underprivileged children. George said when we finished, "Are you sure about this? Your children, this might shock them." George, they shocked me when they ignored my calls during a heart attack for a photo op with elephants. Now it's my turn to shock them. What about they're not to blame for their parents' actions? I thought about it. I loved them, but they were growing up watching their parents treat me as a cash machine. They were learning that old people exist only to fund their dreams. George, I'll write letters to each grandchild explaining my decision. If they want an education, they can apply for scholarships from the charities I'm supporting. Let them earn it with their merits, not their last name. We also made one more crucial change. The new documents took effect immediately. If something happened to me, the money would no longer go to my children. But the best part was yet to come. I asked George to arrange something special, a family meeting at the airport when they returned from Africa, an official announcement of the trust changes. My children were due to arrive Sunday evening. I discharged myself from the hospital on Saturday against the doctor's advice. Dr. Johnson was adamantly opposed. Mrs. Harrison, you need rest. Stress could trigger another heart attack. Doctor, I've lived 73 years of stress taking care of people who don't care about me. I think I'll survive another week. On Sunday evening, I arrived at Charleston International Airport. George was with me, along with a notary and a representative from the World Wildlife Fund, a poised woman in her 40s named Caroline Stone. Their flight from Atlanta, where they'd connected, landed on time. I watched through the terminal's large windows as my family stepped off the plane, all tanned, relaxed in designer clothes. The kids carried bags of souvenirs. They saw me and waved. Sarah ran up first. Mom, how are you feeling? You should be home resting. I feel fine, dear, and I have a surprise for all of you. Richard frowned, noticing George and the strangers. Mom, what's going on? A family meeting, I said. George rented a conference room here at the airport. We have important matters to discuss. The next 20 minutes were the most intense of my life. We sat around a polished table in a small conference room. My children were still in high spirits, sharing stories about the trip, showing photos. Mom, you should seen the elephants, Michael gushed. They're so majestic, and the Serengeti sunsets are unreal. Yes, I said softly. I saw the elephants on your Instagram photos, especially the one where Richard's posing next to a dead baby elephant. The mood in the room shifted sharply. Mom, Richard began, it was a legal hunt. We had all the permits. I know it was legal, I interrupted, just as legal as ignoring 47 of my calls while I was in the ICU. Silence fell. George, I said, nodding to my lawyer. George opened a folder of documents. Ladies, and your mother has asked me to announce significant changes to the family trust and her will. He read the key points. With every word, my children's faces grew paler. You mean, Sarah whispered, we get nothing? Nothing, I confirmed, just like I got nothing from you when I needed you most. But Mom, Michael exclaimed, we didn't know the signal was bad. Michael, you posted on Instagram every day. The signal was good enough for social media, but not for a dying mother. Richard stood up from the table. Mom, this is insane. You can't make decisions like this in an emotional state. We'll contest it in court. You can try, George said, but Mrs. Harrison was deemed fully competent by 2 independent doctors. All documents are legally binding and notarized. That's when Caroline Stone spoke up. Mrs. Harrison, on behalf of the World Wildlife Fund, I want to thank you for your incredibly generous donation. This money will save thousands of African animals from poachers and trophy hunters. She looked at my family. It's especially poignant that these funds will protect the very animals you hunted. The elephants you killed for photos will now be saved by the money that could been yours. Sarah burst into tears. Mom, please, we can fix this. We'll do better, Sarah, I said, standing up, $39,000 for a safari, that was your price. The price you paid for neglecting your mother. Now $8 million is my price for this lesson. I headed for the door but turned back. Oh, I forgot to mention, I also changed my will regarding the family home. The house and property are now bequeathed to the Charleston Historical Society. It'll become a museum, so don't plan on moving back in. I walked out, leaving them in stunned silence. The weeks that followed were tough. My children tried contacting me countless times. They showed up at the house, but I didn't open the door. They sent letters, even had to deliver apologies. Richard did try to contest the will in court, but George was right. The documents were airtight. After a month, their attempt stopped. They realized I was serious. But the story didn't end there. 3 months later, Caroline Stone called me. Mrs. Harrison, I have amazing news. Thanks to your donation, we've established a 50,000-acre reserve in Kenya. We've named it the Harrison Sanctuary. Would you like to attend the opening ceremony? I went to Kenya. At 73, it was my first time in Africa. But unlike my children, I didn't come to kill animals, I came to protect them. The sanctuary's opening ceremony was one of the most moving moments of my life. I saw elephants, alive and free, grazing in their natural habitat, lions playing with their cubs, rhinos striding majestically across the savanna. A local chief performed a special blessing ceremony for me. Mama, he said in broken English, you've given new life to our animals. They're safe now. Your money has become their strength. I cried, standing in the Kenyan savanna, knowing the money meant for my animal-killing children was now saving thousands of lives. When I returned home, a surprise awaited me. A letter from my granddaughter Emma, Richard's 19-year-old daughter, who was in her 2nd year of studying biology. Dear Grandma, she wrote, I know Dad's mad at you about the will, but I want you to know I'm proud of you. What you did was right. I was always against that safari. Killing animals for fun is disgusting. I've applied for a scholarship from the World Wildlife Fund to study conservation. I hope to get an education and carry on your work protecting wildlife. Thank you for teaching me that standing up for your principles matters even when it's hard. I love you." That letter brought me more joy than all the money in the world. A year passed, my children stopped trying to contact me. They were too proud to admit their mistake, too greedy to forgive the loss of the money. But life went on. I started volunteering at a local animal shelter. I began funding wildlife conservation education programs in schools. Every month, I received updates from the Kenya sanctuary about how my money was being used. In a year, the sanctuary saved over 200 elephants from poachers, provided jobs for 150 locals, and trained 50 rangers. My money was working to preserve life, not destroy it. Then something happened that made me rethink some of my decisions. Michael's 18-month-old granddaughter, Little, fell gravely ill with a rare form of leukemia requiring expensive treatment. Michael reached out to me through a mutual friend. He wasn't asking for himself, he was asking for his child. I spent a sleepless night thinking it over. Wasn't to blame for her parents' actions. She was an innocent child who needed help. The next morning, I called George. "George, I want to create a separate medical fund for family emergencies, especially for the children." "How much do you want to allocate?" $500,000 from my personal savings, not from the trust that stays untouched, but this fund will be for genuine medical emergencies. Treatment was paid for, she recovered. Michael sent me a thank you letter, but we still didn't speak directly. 6 months later, another letter arrived, from Jacob, Sarah's 16-year-old son. "Grandma," he wrote, "I'm 16 and want to study veterinary medicine. I know you're angry at our parents and I understand why. That safari was awful. I didn't want to go, but they made me. I hated seeing animals killed. I've applied for a scholarship from the Animal Conservation Fund you support. I want to become a wildlife veterinarian and work in sanctuaries, not for money but because it's right. Can we meet?" I met Jacob at a downtown, a tall, serious teenager with bright eyes. He told me about his plans, his dream of working with animals, and how my sanctuary story inspired him. "Grandma," he said at the end, "I'm not asking for money. I just want you to know not everyone in our family is like our parents. Some of us are learning from their mistakes." A year later, Jacob received a full scholarship from the World Wildlife Fund. Emma graduated with honors and got a job at a sanctuary in Costa. Slowly, more reached out, not for money but for advice, support, understanding. They saw their grandmother not as a bitter old woman who cut them off, but as a principled woman standing up for what matters. My own children, though, still hadn't learned their lesson. 2 years ago, Richard tried to sell our family story to the tabloids. Cruel mother disinherits kids over vacation. The article ran in a local paper but backfired. People supported me. Letters to the editor condemned my children, not me. If they could spend $39,000 killing animals but couldn't answer a dying mother's call, they got what they deserved, one reader wrote. Sarah launched a GoFundMe page, asking for donations for a family unfairly disinherited by a cruel mother. It raised just $50 before being shut down after people commented on how despicable it was to ignore a dying parent. Michael declared bankruptcy after another failed business venture. He hoped I'd take pity and help, but I didn't budge. Let him learn to earn money honestly, not rely on an inheritance. But the biggest changes came last year. I turned 75 and doctors found early-stage pancreatic cancer. The prognosis was cautiously optimistic with aggressive treatment, but at my age, there were no guarantees. News of my illness spread quickly through the family, and then something unexpected happened. Michael came to me first, not for money, not to restore the will. He came to apologize. "Mom," he said, standing at my doorstep, "can I come in, not to talk about money, just to talk?" I let him in. We sat in the living room where we used to hold family celebrations. "Mom, I've been a complete jerk," he said bluntly. "Not just on that safari, for years. I treated you like an ATM, not a mother." "You did," I agreed. "I want to apologize, not because I'm sick, not because I hope to get the money back. It's gone, I get that. I'm apologizing because I realized how much pain I caused the person who loved me most." Those were the first sincere words I'd heard from him in years. "Michael, what changed? Why now?" My son Tommy, he's 15. Last week he told me, "Dad, I don't want to be like you. All your life you just asked Grandma for money, and when she needed you, you were hunting elephants. That's disgusting." Michael paused, collecting himself. "Mom, my own son is ashamed of me, and he's right. I spent your money killing innocent animals while you were dying. That's unforgivable." "And now?" I asked. "Now I want to earn forgiveness, not with money, I don't have any, with actions. I got a job at an animal shelter, volunteering for now, but I'm training to become a wildlife rehabilitation specialist." I was stunned. "You at an animal shelter?" "Yes, I realized if I want to atone for killing animals, I need to save them now. Every life I save is dedicated to the memory of those elephants and lions I killed in Africa." Sarah came next. Her visit was even more surprising. "Mom," she said, "I'm divorcing Brad." "Oh, why?" "He wants to go on another hunting safari, to Namibia this time, says it's a man's hobby and I don't get it, but I realized I can't be with someone who enjoys killing." Sarah sat across from me. "Mom, I want to apologize too, for the safari, for ignoring your calls, for all the years I treated you as a money source." "Sarah." "No, let me finish. I'm shutting down my design business. Well, redirecting it. I'm now designing spaces for animal shelters and rehab centers. That's a big decision." "Mom, I need to make up for what I did. Money won't fix it. Only actions will." Richard was the last to come. His apology was the hardest for him. "Mom, I'm a lawyer," he said. "All my life I've been good at justifying anything, finding loopholes, shifting blame, but there's no excuse here." He pulled a folder from his briefcase. "These are documents for a legal clinic to protect animals. We'll represent sanctuaries, shelters, and wildlife organizations in court free of charge." "Richard." "Mom, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I just want the rest of my life to mean something. I used to help rich people get richer. Now I want to help those who protect the defenseless." Those conversations with my children changed something in me. I saw they'd finally learned the lesson, not because of money or fear of losing an inheritance, because of shame from their own children, because they realized what they'd become. But I didn't change the will. "Mom," Michael asked during one of our now weekly dinners, yes, we started meeting again, "will you ever fully forgive us?" "Michael, I already have, but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean undoing consequences." "So the will stays the same?" "It does. Those $8 million will save more lives in sanctuaries than in your bank accounts." "I understand," he said, "and I agree." That was astonishing. My children finally agreed that the money should go to preserving life, not destroying it. Cancer treatment was grueling, chemotherapy, surgery, months of recovery, but now I wasn't alone with doctors and nurses. My children took turns staying at the hospital, helping at home, supporting me. Not for money, because I'm their mother. During one chemo session, Sarah read me letters from the Kenya Sanctuary staff. "Mom, listen to this. Thanks to the Harrison Sanctuary, 15 baby elephants were born last year. All are healthy and protected by rangers. We've named them S-Generation in your honor." S-Generation, 15 baby elephants living because of money my children would spent on more luxuries. A year ago, I received a letter that touched me more than anything else, from Caroline Stone at the World Wildlife Fund. "Dear," she wrote, "I have incredible news. Your donation has inspired hundreds of others. In the 3 years since the sanctuary's creation, we've received an additional $12 million in donations. People read your story and realize protecting nature matters more than personal greed. We've established 3 more sanctuaries in Africa and Asia. Over 200,000 acres of wildlife and thousands of animals are now protected. Your decision to change your will has saved more lives than we could imagine. $12 million in additional donations. My story inspired others to give to wildlife protection instead of spending on killing. Last spring, I returned to Kenya. The doctors didn't want me to go, but I insisted. At 75 post-cancer, I wanted to see the results of my decision again. The sanctuary had grown. It now employed over 300 locals. There was a school for nearby village children, a medical clinic, a rehabilitation center for injured animals. And most importantly, the animals. Hundreds of elephants, dozens of lions, rhinos, giraffes, zebras, all alive, free, and protected. "Mama," said the same chief who blessed me 4 years earlier, "your spirit lives in every animal we've saved. Your money has become their life." On the flight home, I thought about how my family had changed. Michael was now a wildlife rehabilitation specialist running a program at the state's largest shelter. Sarah founded a nonprofit designing animal shelters nationwide for free. Richard won several major lawsuits against poachers and companies violating animal rights. All 3 of my children found ways to atone through actions, not words. And my Emma earned a master in marine ecosystem conservation. Jacob enrolled in veterinary school on a full scholarship. Tommy, Michael's son, at 16, was volunteering at 3 different animal shelters. My children's children chose a different path, a path of preserving life, not destroying it. I'm 76 now. The cancer is in remission, though the doctors are cautiously optimistic. I live in the same house that will soon become a museum. Every morning, I walk into the garden and feed the birds nesting in the old oaks. Yesterday, all 3 of my children and their families came over. We had a barbecue in the yard, the first family gathering in 5 years. "Mom," Richard said as we sat on the porch watching the play, "thank you." "For what?" "For teaching us to be human, the hard way, but it was the only way that would worked." I looked at my children. Michael was playing with Little, who recovered thanks to the medical fund. Sarah was showing the grandkids sanctuary photos, teaching them about conservation. "You know," I said, "I sometimes think about the woman I was 4 years ago, lying in the hospital, calling children who wouldn't answer. That woman thought she'd lost her family forever." "And now?" Sarah asked. "Now I know I didn't lose my family, I saved it." A week ago, a National Geographic journalist called. They wanted to make a documentary about the sanctuaries funded by my money and how a family tragedy turned into a story of wildlife salvation. "Mrs. Harrison, your story is inspiring people worldwide. Many elderly people are revising their wills, directing money to conservation instead of entitled heirs." The movement was dubbed Slegacy. Hundreds of people changed their wills, leaving money to protect animals instead of children who neglected them. But the most remarkable thing, the journalist continued, is that in many families it's led to reconciliation. Children who lost inheritances started valuing their parents as people, not cash machines. "Just like in my family." 2 days ago, I received a letter that brought tears of joy from the Kenya Sanctuary's director. "Dear Mama," he wrote, "we have a new elephant calf. Her mother rejected her and we're hand-raising her. She's special, born with unique white, heart-shaped markings on her ears. We named her in your honor. She's growing strong and healthy. When she's older, she'll be an ambassador for the sanctuary, sharing the story of the kind American grandmother who saved their home." An elephant named my living legacy in the African savanna. Last week I made one final change to my will, not to the main part. The $8 million still goes to wildlife protection, but I created a small $100,000 fund for my children. Not money to spend, money to continue the work they've started. Michael gets $35,000 to expand his wildlife rehabilitation program. Sarah gets $35,000 for shelter projects in rural areas. Richard gets $30,000 for legal defense of animals. When I told them, all 3 refused. "Mom," Michael said, "we don't even deserve this." "You do," I replied, "not as heirs, as people who changed, as protectors of those who can't protect themselves." This morning, I'm sitting in my garden, writing these final lines. In an hour, Emma will visit. She's defending her doctoral dissertation in marine biology and wants to show me her research. On the table before me are photos from the sanctuary, elephants at a watering hole, lions resting under acacias, Little playing with other calves. And I know I made the right choice. The $39,000 my children spent killing animals turned into $8 million, saving thousands of lives. Their betrayal during my heart attack sparked the most important work of my life. Sometimes the most painful lessons yield the most valuable results. And my children, they finally learned that love can't be bought, respect can't be inherited, and a real family isn't those who take your money but those who answer your calls when you're hurting. A lesson worth $8 million, but it was worth it. Because now, instead of spoiled heirs spending money on killing innocent creatures, I have children who dedicated their lives to saving lives. And somewhere in the African savannah, a little elephant named runs free, never knowing she owes her life to a family betrayal that turned into a great salvation. That's true legacy, not money in a bank, but lives that go on because of one hard choice made long ago. The story is over, but the lives it saved are just beginning. If you enjoyed this story, give it a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and let me know where you're reading from. Until next time.